That's how long it will take the average unskilled Nigerian worker to earn the same amount of money that a Nigerian lawmaker makes in a single year. Although it's very hard to find official records showing the salaries of government officials, a number of recent leaks and investigative reports have revealed that the average Nigerian lawmaker receives somewhere between $40,000 and $80,000 a month in wages and allowances. Taking the more conservative estimate as a basis of comparison and excluding any additional gains made from backdoor deals, kickbacks, and bribes, the average Nigerian lawmaker's overall pay package amounts to about the same as the base salary of the American president, about twice as much as the base salary of the British Prime Minister and the South African president, and roughly 4 times more than the base salaries of the presidents of Brazil, the Ivory Coast, and Portugal. But perhaps these figures would be slightly understandable if Nigeria had not recently been crowned the poverty capital of the world, as a recent report by the World Poverty Clock showed that despite having a population 6 times smaller, Nigeria had overtaken India as the country with the largest number of people living in extreme poverty. Within just 7 hours of sitting through debates, enjoying a relaxing lunch break, and discussing with colleagues on the corridors of Parliament, the average Nigerian lawmaker would have earned the equivalent of the monthly salary of the average entry-level Nigerian policeman. In fact, based on current salary bands, the average graduate policeman in Nigeria would need to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year from today until the year 2122. Just to earn the equivalent of what the average Nigerian senator currently earns in annual wages and allowances. And to add insult to injury, while the average Nigerian lawmaker is guaranteed to see his fat pay package deposited into his bank account every month, the average Nigerian policeman, like many other government employees, could go month after month without being paid a single penny, due to so-called administrative delays, which are more often than not a way of hiding the fact that the monies allocated by the government to cover their salaries have been embezzled by their orgas at the top. Despite shockingly poor salaries, which may or may not be paid each month, underfunded training facilities, and shockingly poor working conditions, the Nigerian state has for many years been happy to supply firearms, batons, and tear gas to its law enforcement agents and expect them to risk life and limb in preservation of a society that seems to work only for the benefit of an elite class with absolutely no care or concern for them or their families. Several reports and documentaries have shown how Nigeria's police academies have steadily degenerated, with wretched living conditions, a culture of abuse and bullying by senior officers, and very poor standards of training being provided to young officers. But nevertheless, Nigeria's police academies continue to churn out wave after wave of armed, abused, and poorly trained officers who are allowed to run rampant on Nigerian streets with bribery, harassment, and brutality being part and parcel of the tricks of the trade. In 2016, the Nigerian police force was officially ranked as the worst in the world by the World Internal Security and Police Index, posting a worse score than the police forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, and Uganda, which alongside Nigeria were considered to have the 4 worst police forces in the entire world. But with the outbreak of the ongoing EndSARS protests, millions of young Nigerians from all around the world have decided that enough is enough. Although the protests were initially directed at the Nigerian Police Force's Special Anti-Robbery Squad, long notorious for murdering, extorting, abusing, and kidnapping the very same people it was set up to protect, the EndSARS protests have evolved into a broader national movement calling for much-needed reforms from the top to the bottom of every aspect of Nigerian society. Nigeria's young people have realized police reform on its own would be simply scratching the surface of a much broader problem. The Nigerian police force are just one amongst a myriad of many interconnected dysfunctional Nigerian institutions which need to be transformed from top to bottom. They've realized that each individual police officer is at the core of it all, a simple human being reacting and operating in response to the set of incentives and limitations that have been created by the deeply unfair and uncaring society maintained by Nigeria's ruling elites. Nigerians from all around the world are calling for accountability from their political leaders like never before, and scared for their lives and livelihoods, Nigeria's power brokers have responded violently, paying thugs and even unleashing the armed forces on innocent protesters. Now, while tensions and nationwide protests are nothing new to Nigeria, the current situation feels different. More than at any other time in Nigeria's modern history, the conversation is not limited to just a specific issue, a specific individual, or a specific case of corruption. Instead, the conversation is centered around the overriding superstructure that has ensured that despite the nation's immense natural wealth and human capital, Nigeria continues to languish at the bottom of virtually every global measurement of human development. The conversation is much more than just a referendum on the future of Nigeria's political elite. Many Nigerians are increasingly waking up to the fact that the precarious position that Nigeria currently finds itself in is more than just a product of corrupt politicians. As Afrobeat legend Fela Kuti pointed out in his classic 1977 album, Suffering and Smiling, the deeply oppressive Nigerian system is actually held in place by a joint effort of a tightly knit group of religious, cultural, and economic elites who, whether by act or omission, work in collusion to create and maintain a society that works for the few and not the many. From the Christian leaders who work tirelessly to convince their millions of followers that all their problems are caused by witchcraft and generational curses, while simultaneously collecting gifts and giving front row seats to the corrupt politicians who are the true architects of the plight of the masses, to the traditional kings and chiefs who promote destructive skin bleaching products, despite their positions as guardians of African identity and tradition, to the rich and powerful bankers who help corrupt politicians to launder their money, and even the self-righteous, well-to-do upper-middle-class Nigerians who boldly criticize politicians but secretly employ children to work as housekeepers and pay their chauffeurs, security guards, and gardeners a mere fraction of the true value of their work.
Over the Ladakh skies, China's belligerence along the line of actual control has prompted the Indian Air Force to move many of its offensive assets up north from all over the country.
Our units train on a continuous basis along all possible fronts, terrain and weather. The training indeed is very rigorous, ensuring that we remain battle ready and capable of redeployment to any location at short notice. We are ready and well poised to take on any challenge whenever the need arises.
Air Force Station Leh, home to the legendary 114 helicopter unit that has served Siachen since 1984, has never been as busy as it has been since May. Night flying is now routine. Apart from handling the usual commercial flights, it now caters to increased military traffic that includes fighter aircraft such as the Sukhoi 30s and MiG-29s, transport aircraft IL-76 and C-17s, and a variety of helicopters, Apaches, Chinooks, Cheetahs, Advanced Light Helicopter, and of course the old workhorse Mi-17s.
Indian Air Force has been operating fighters, transports and helicopters in this region, and we have a rich experience. Of course, mountain flying has its inherent challenges. High altitude and inhospitable terrain results in employability of man and machine to their limits. However, our training, skill base and professionalism helps us to address all these aspects.
Induction of additional radar stations, flight controllers and other support staff means the airbase is stretched to its limit. The station never sleeps, but it is coping with increased workload very well.
The logistics port is well streamlined and the procurement of the state-of-the-art equipment have improved survivability and enhanced operational capability to fly in these mountains even in extreme winter conditions. We have adequate experience and expertise in flying and maintaining our aircrafts and other equipment, and also sustaining our personnel at high altitudes.
The standoff with China has meant the Air Force is applying a new paradigm of deployment. The present condition of the forces aligned and assigned to Ladakh is more than adequate, and therefore something that India need not worry about if the balloon goes up. At the Leh Air Base with Rohit Pandita, this is Nitin Gokhale.
Mr. President of the General Assembly, Excellencies, nuclear disarmament has been a priority of the United Nations since the very beginning of the organization's existence. Yet, 75 years since the founding of the United Nations and since the horrific bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world continues to live in the shadow of nuclear catastrophe. Some states view nuclear weapons as vital to their national security and survival. But the elimination of nuclear weapons is vital to something beyond the fate of any single state, the survival of life on this planet. Unfortunately, progress towards the total elimination of nuclear weapons has stalled and is at risk of backsliding. Growing distrust and tension between states that possess nuclear weapons have increased nuclear risks. Programs to modernize arsenals threaten a qualitative nuclear arms race based not on numbers, but faster, stealthier, and more accurate weapons. And the opportunity cost of spending money on such ill-conceived upgrades is simply staggering. The only treaty constraining the size of the world's largest nuclear arsenals is set to expire early next year, raising the alarming possibility of a return to unconstrained strategic competition. For this reason, it is imperative that the Russian Federation and the United States of America extend without delay the New START Treaty for the duration of 5 years. For the sake of all of our security, the world must return to a common path towards nuclear disarmament. And states possessing nuclear weapons have a responsibility to lead this endeavor, including by fulfilling their existing disarmament commitments and by taking practical steps to reduce nuclear risk. Especially in today's tense international security environment, with rising friction between major powers, such steps are more necessary than ever. Ultimately, however, the only way to completely eliminate nuclear risk is to completely eliminate nuclear weapons. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons remains the cornerstone of the nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime. I call on states parties to use the extra time afforded to them by the postponement of the 10th Review Conference to ensure a meaningful outcome that strengthens this bastion of nuclear non-proliferation and includes tangible progress towards the total elimination of nuclear weapons. And I look forward to the entry into force of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which reflects the desire of a large number of states to free the world of this threat. The COVID-19 pandemic has not only extracted a grim toll in lives and economic destruction, but has also exposed the fragility of the international community's ability to act in common cause. We have seen yet again that to confront global threats, we need a strengthened, inclusive, and renewed multilateralism built on trust, based on international law, and with human security at its center. Let this approach also guide us to our shared goal of a world free of nuclear weapons.